Hello, welcome to KWABENA TV and to our latest program, The Black Arena. This is a platform where we discuss issues that have the power to bring justice, healing and freedom to Black people across the world. A wind of activism has swept across the globe in the last weeks following the unfortunate death of George Floyd in America, which brings us to our topic for our maiden edition, racism. Is it real or a mere perception? Let's discuss the issues from the perspective of international students. Let's meet our panel. Yeah, so I've got my participants online from across the globe to discuss the issues further. Hello guys, welcome to KWABENA TV.
Hello. Thank you.
Yes, I hope all of you are doing very well.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. We are doing well.
All right, thank you very much. So we're talking about Black Lives Matter, the protest that has generated a lot of heat across the globe. And I've seen all of you actively involved on various social media platforms. Solis, I saw you join the march in Estonia. Micah, you were part of it in Germany. Kelvin, I didn't really see you on social media, but you told me you have also been actively involved. And then Victoria, you're also in Ghana and you have also been very much part of it. Thank you very much, guys. And so let's see the reality of the issues. Most often we read about these things and it looks like they are far away, they are just a perception, but we want to know how real they are. I'll start with you, Kelvin, because you have lived in the UK for a long time as a young boy, been through the education system, and now you are a graduate working. How was it like growing up as a Black kid in this community?
I think coming to the UK, I came to the UK when I was 10 years old. And right now I'm 25, so it's been a while. I've been here for like 15 years. So first coming into the UK, I thought, you know what, the land of opportunity, everything is going to be great. And as I went through the education system, I realized that even though I wanted to be friends and I wanted to be friendly with everyone and I wanted to be impartial, there was still something that was slightly off. At first, I didn't realize it was to do with my skin color because I was just a kid and I just wanted to be friends with everyone. But as I've gone through, I've realized that the bias is more apparent than people want to make it out to be. It would be some cases where you'd want to, I'll start from primary school, you'd want to be friends with certain people, but then they wouldn't even want to associate with you, or you want to sit with them in the dining room and they would move away and you'd be wondering, what's wrong with me? Like, do I smell? Like, what's going on? Like, am I so different from you? And even moves beyond friendship circles. Sometimes in academia, you'd have cases where even though you'd be performing well as a student, your teachers, they have certain things called predicted grades. Even though you'd be doing well as a student, because you are an immigrant coming from, let's say, West Africa or just abroad, your grades wouldn't get bumped up. Your predicted grades wouldn't get bumped up, all based on the fact that you are someone who, you know, just came to the UK and they assume that you wouldn't be able to cope with the system. So it's something that's institutional. It's within the system, and it's not something that can change with just one person. It's the system that actually needs to be adapted. And it's a case where I feel as though people within the system with power need to give minorities the benefit of the doubt when it comes
Yes,
to
I will come to
them.
that, Kelvin. We'll come to how to change the narrative. But let me go to Germany and speak to Eddie Micah Jr. Micah, unlike Kelvin, you came into Europe when you were a grown man. Your early days were spent in Africa. And so I'm sure you came into the system with certain perceptions, certain things you read about racism and all that. Tell me, how different was it for you as an adult in the education system as an international student?
So you want me to look particularly at the education system?
Exactly, as an international student in Europe.
I mean, when it comes to the angle of education, I wouldn't say there was something crystal clear to say that, okay, because I'm African or I'm Black, that I'm not getting what I was due. But I think it came about more from general discussions that we're having, whether it was group assignments, and, you know, of course, we're people from over 35 different countries in my class, which was really cool. But also you realize the different ways of thinking, mentalities. I mean, people will be asking questions all the time when you say you're from Ghana or you're from Africa, and they immediately get into a discourse of, okay, but how's Ghana like? Because they are expecting you to say, oh, it's a poor country, there's some conflict going on, it's all crazy out there and all of that. So some get surprised, for instance, when I end up seeing some pretty cool stuff about Ghana. It's like, then they're still probing, you know, to get, no, but what about?
Yeah, not to cut you in, but did you face any form of discrimination because of your skin color or your race?
So here's the thing. When we talk discrimination, there's the very clear discrimination, right? Where someone comes at you and whether it's the N-word or say he says maybe go back to where you're from and all. I didn't face that direct racism when it comes to the educational system. So to speak, mine was a bit more what you'd say covert, more like, you know, it's subtle sort of racism. But then there's the other discussion, in my opinion, that at what point do you actually prove that this is racism? I guess that's sometimes a challenge that we Black folks abroad face. So my policy was basically that I'll give people the benefit of the doubt unless I felt that this was really that stupid, then I bring it out. But it's good that you bring it out. So I brought it out when I felt that, hey, what did you mean by this? Or, you know, but not like in an angry way or anything, diplomatically, like, you do realize that this, and I try to put things right here and there. So directly in the educational system, I stood in Denmark and in Germany, that I wouldn't directly say I was directly racially abused or discriminated against, but it was more in those sort of subtle conversations, which sometimes can even be more annoying than the direct ones. But yeah, those definitely happen from time to time.
All right. I, as an international student, have faced instances where you are put in a group to work with other students and they feel like they look down on you. I mean, they don't think you can make any meaningful suggestions. And so when they are giving out tasks among the people in the group, they look at you and they, what can we even give to this one? What can this one do? You know, and so my first year was very, very critical. I really had to prove myself to my classmates to feel involved in the thing that was happening. Solace, you are also an international student in Estonia, where I learned the Black community is very minute fraction of the whole population. Can you tell us any personal experiences you have had to face as a result of where you're coming from?
I think it basically would resonate with what Mike has said. I'm in Estonia right now, but then I spent different semesters in different countries. So I was in Glasgow, and then I was in Malta, and now I'm in Estonia. The thing with Estonia is it's very, very sort of a little bit removed from when it comes to things like this, mainly because of what you said, as like the Black community is quite small. And you actually meet people and then you realize that they have never had an interaction with a Black person before. The only information they have about a Black person is what they've seen in the movies or what they've watched in music videos or probably what they've watched on YouTube and things like that. So you just like Eddie said, like I have a more of benefit of a doubt first, and then having those questions. So where are you from? And especially, I think my biggest experience has to do with the way I speak. Because when I speak, then people ask, where are you from? And then I'm like, oh, I'm from Ghana. And then they're like, Ghana? Where's, those who don't know Ghana, like, where's that? And I say, oh yeah, it's West Africa. And then they're like, but you speak so well. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, we speak English. You know, we're colonized by the British. English is our national language. And then there's so much surprise. And then they keep asking more questions. As a student, I wouldn't say that there's anything that has been very overt, like in your face kind of discrimination. But then again, like just like Micah said, it's more of people. Sometimes they don't even realize what they're doing. They sort of put you in a certain category before and then they realize, okay, they had sort of assumed you wouldn't know certain things. And I speak, and then people are like they're wondering how I know these things, or how things are in Ghana. And then they get intrigued, and then they ask more questions. And so you do get that, people sort of putting you in that box, assuming you don't know certain things or you're not exposed in a certain way. So that kind of subtle and microaggressions, you get those kinds of experiences a lot. In Malta, however, I had very clear experiences with that in the university. Even though I didn't have that in class, in the university setting, exactly the same thing. You have people sort of try to brush you off because they don't even want to listen to what you're saying, because they've already sort of put you in that category that you don't have anything meaningful to say. But those who know me know that I'm not a very easy person to like put down. So it's like you have to consistently be at the top of your game. You can't even make like a mistake like everybody else, because people are already assuming you don't know what you're doing. So you constantly have to be like operating at this level, consistently having to prove that you're smart enough, you're intelligent enough, and you deserve to be there as well as anybody else in that class or in that setting.
Very well. Let's go to Ghana and speak to Victoria, who also schooled in Europe but had to go back home after education. Victoria, what different experience did you have as an international student apart from the various ones that we've spoken about so far?
So like Solace, I also moved around quite a bit. I lived first in Munich, and that was my first shock, because later on I came to know that people in Munich tend to be closed. It takes a while to get to know them, but when you do, they're really wonderful people. And I think you can extend that to a certain extent to most German people. So Munich was interesting in the sense that it was very difficult to make friends. We came in, unfortunately, at the time when there was this so-called refugee crisis. So a lot of people felt like maybe you were a refugee. So we had instances where, I was in a scholarship there were 3,000 applicants and 300 were selected from all over the world. So we had some people who would wear the hijab, and they faced open aggression. I didn't experience any of that. But I think Munich was bitter and sweet, because we had one instance where somebody came to our apartments with her kids and said it was the first time her children had ever seen Black people, and she was worried about the effects of seeing Black people on the psyche of her children. And that was really upsetting. I actually wanted to go to the police, but it would have been my neighbor's word against my word. So that was the first kind of really negative experience. And I tend to think of that as ignorance, because Germany has, unfortunately, a very dark history, and most Germans have come to terms with it. There's a certain sense of national shame when it comes to topics of racial, discrimination and all that. So that was Munich. And then we moved to my university town, which is small, very open. And the first time we got there, people actually welcomed us with open arms. My classmates were really wonderful. I think the only challenge I had was with some of my professors who were also very ignorant and who pushed that image of, Africans sitting around breaking computers to take out precious metals or whatever. But I tried to educate my classmates. There were times where I'll show pictures of Accra and my classmates would be like, I expected more huts or, the typical images of Africa. So it was very interesting. But I also went to Vienna and someone would come to you and ask you, oh, life must have been really hard in Africa for you to come to Europe. Or, I don't know, can you show me what an ostrich egg looks like? Because they assume that Africa is one big village. And I'm looking at the expression on Kelvin's face. And so I had some really bizarre experiences because I used to travel around a lot. But all in all, I would say it was bittersweet. There were really wonderful moments, like in Berlin, where people are very cosmopolitan, very open. Some really surprising moments. I ended up living with a German family, and it was really amazing, So it was a mix of good and bad.
All right, thank you very much, Victoria. Since you mentioned Berlin and we are in Germany, let's stay in Germany. And Micah, we've heard of stories, or we read of stories where people are actually refused certain opportunities like renting an apartment, accessing certain public places just by virtue of their skin color or their background. Have you had any such experiences, Micah?
So this is a story I don't normally tell much to the rest of the world. So this is probably the first time it's going to go public. But so when I was in Denmark, wrapping up my first year of my master's, I was going to move to Hamburg, Germany. So I obviously had to go hunting for apartments. So I go, and then I took 3 days or so going up and down to different locations and all of that. And I get a place. It was a white German dude who was a very nice guy. Showed me around. He was even like, yeah, you can use my stuff and all of that. And everything seemed okay. So now all that was left was to get me the contract to sign, which he had to meet with the landowner or the one who owned all the houses over there. Landlord, I should say, then to get me the contract. So after 3 days, after I'm back in Denmark, I get an email saying that it's really unfortunate and it's sad for him to even say this, but the landlord doesn't want Black people living in the community. This was like blatantly him telling me this. So, well, one, was I totally in shock? Yes and no. I know racism exists and all of that. So I wasn't necessarily surprised that it was a racist sort of thing. But it just really does hurt to feel that all the effort and everything that I had put into something, and now the only reason I couldn't access that place was because of my skin color. So I've been talking about direct racism and the subtle ones. This was arguably my most direct, one of the direct ones that I faced. And so yes, if you ask of one of my experiences, this was one of them. Doesn't mean everyone in Germany is like that, of course not. But you're always going to have those people that just, I don't know nothing and discriminate against people. But Catherine, are we going to get into how this whole movement of protesting?
Yeah.
Okay, because then I will have added something, but I'll hold that on.
Of course, yes. I want to go to Kelvin. This issue, this Black Lives Matter, that has, it's catching on, if it's already not caught fire around the world. This is not the first time something like this is going on. A lot has happened, and the unfortunate death of George Floyd it's unfortunate, but it's not the only thing that we've witnessed over the years. Why is this one different? Why is this Black Lives Matter protest different, Kelvin? Why do you think that this is going to make any difference compared to the ones that have happened over the years?
I think in this case, it's the perfect storm, because I think it's unprecedented that within a global pandemic that there is a movement such as this. So it's like there is no sort of work to sort of distract anyone from the injustices going on. Everyone is at home. Everyone saw what happened. Everyone constantly sees what happened. And that is what has driven the outrage. It's not a case of, oh, this happens all the time. It's a case of, okay, this is the last time this is going to happen. You can only sort of beat down a race of people so many times before they actually revolt, because humans can only take so much. And this stretches back to colonial times, 400 years, 100 years of segregation, and like in the modern era, constant police brutality against Black people, even more so in America. In England, it's a little different. The sort of racial bias or racism in England is extremely subtle. It's almost like it's not there, but it's really there. That's why I believe that it's probably worse in England than anywhere else. And people do ask, why are you protesting in England when this thing happened in America? And it's not the case that we as Black people are just making noise and disrupting the whole environment. It's the case that we've read in the history books, we've seen these things constantly. And as I said, you can only see so many images of your brothers and sisters getting murdered and injustices happening to them, like, before you have to speak out. And as I said before, it's the perfect storm, because there is no distraction and people want their voices to be heard. That's what I think.
Okay, I'll just put this question, and any of you among Solis, Micah, and Victoria can answer. I would like to find out from you whether you think that this is going to make any difference, especially in our university communities across the world.
Definitely.
Okay.
Solis, go ahead.
Okay, you go, Solis.
Definitely. It's definitely going to make a difference. Like in my case, I had a personal situation about 3 weeks ago where I was selling my phone. And so I put it on this, Facebook marketplace. And the moment I put it there, I regret it. I was like, I shouldn't have done that. I should have given it to my partner to post it there, because then, he's from here, so nobody's going to see my face, because I know how the situation is here. A day after that, I start getting messages, and the person just starts straight ahead using the N-word. But then they spell it Niger. So I'm thinking, is this person asking whether I'm from Niger or Nigerian? Let me just give the person and not just assume that's what they're doing. So I'm like, I don't understand. And it's like, I am European, I am white, you are and then she spells it Niger. And then keeps going on and on. And then they'll type in Russian, very, very nasty words. And then they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, it was my little sister. And so I kind of screenshot everything. I sent it to my directors in the university, because the profile said that they had gone to my university here. That's Tallinn University. And that the system, the consortium that I belong to, that's the Erasmus Mundus Joint Master's Degree Consortium, it has also been, given to them. Now, this right now, what's happening right now is something that no one can ignore. If you're an institution, you can't pretend like it's not happening. If you're not seeing the videos, if you're not seeing the numerous accounts that various people have. So for the universities that don't have, for instance, anti-racism laws, that is supposed to change. You are going to change it, whether you like it or not, because you need to toe that line. That's the wind of change that is blowing, and you can't be an educational institution and not have these kinds of policies that safeguard the lives of persons of color, especially Black people. It doesn't make sense. It's not feasible in a time like this. So it's definitely going to make a difference. And for those who don't do anything about it, they're just going to stick out like sore thumbs, and we're going to know them for who they really are. So, yeah.
Victoria, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I was going to say that it's forced certain difficult conversations to be had. In the long term, I've always said that we celebrate, Black excellence and Black academic excellence. But I think it's about time we started celebrating Black business excellence. In terms of having Black-owned businesses, because I always say, when you study in Europe and you leave school, some people have faced discrimination in terms of, job prospects. Because, for example, in Germany, your picture is on your CV, so there is a chance that you can be discriminated against. So do we have systems in place that can absorb people who go through the educational system, both in Europe, the US, and the rest of the world, as well as in different parts of Africa? So for me, I think that's something I wish would come more to the forefront in all these discussions that we're having. Because until we have, we own the economic wealth of Africa and in the spaces that we occupy, I really don't think some of these things are going to change much. Yes, this George Floyd incident has sparked a lot, and I'm really excited about some of the conversations and some of the people I'm seeing explaining it, even white people. But for me, this is what I really believe, that if that doesn't change, we may, still be going through the same cycle over and over again.
Micah?
So I'd like to look at the glass as half full than half empty when it comes to things like this. It's obviously going to take quite a while for that equality and justice that we want for it to happen. But for some to think that the protests going on around the world and all is not going to make an impact, that's just totally wrong. Because in Germany, for instance, there's this anti-discrimination law that has always sort of been hanging. Well, it has now become a law. I think that was 2 weeks or so ago. That now gives me the legal right as a Black person to report anyone who I believe discriminates against me because of my religion, skin color, ethnicity, whatever. So now I have that legal right. And of course, all this has been heated up based on the George Floyd's death and the protests going on around the world. So yes, there are changes that are coming through. Berlin is the state that did this, and I'm pretty sure most other states are going to copy this. Even in the US, the NFL, remember before they were like, it's illegal to kneel. You have to stand up and put your hand on your chest for the national anthem. Now, what is the NFL boss saying? That, hey, people can actually kneel, take a knee during the anthem. They have the right to do so. Even though, of course, Donald Trump has been totally against that, but that's a different topic. So yes, there are movements that based on the heat right now that is causing change here. And I know I speak to a lot of Black folks here, and very, they feel like, what really is going to be done is just, they're just going to throw you a bone and then get back to the system. I disagree. A lot of the changes that have happened around the world in relation to supporting minority groups, it took a while, but it took consistency. It took constantly hitting hard for things to be heard. Honestly, it's even very sad that in the 21st century, we are still talking about Black Lives Matter. Why? Why are we even saying, why are we even letting people understand that Black Lives Matter in the 21st century? But unfortunately, it is what it is. And we cannot recoil into our shells and just expect things to happen if we don't keep pushing. So yeah, it definitely is causing changes around the world.
Okay, so a lot before we had this episode, we had a lot of conversation with people behind the scenes, just trying to test the pulse of the public or most people with regards to this activism and protest. But one thing I found from all these discussions, especially among students, is the issue that Victoria mentioned in terms of career, jobs, even in the university communities. I don't know if any of you, Kevin, Solis, Micah, Victoria, had any personal experience or met anybody that experienced it, where you apply for jobs on university communities that you know that you qualify, and you couldn't get it. Sometimes it is obvious it's because of where you're coming from. Other times they are subtle, they are hidden undertone and all that. Victoria, Solis, Micah, Kelvin, anybody?
This isn't me particularly, but this is like in regards to some friends of mine. I had friends, yeah. They were in a relationship and they both did architecture like I did, and they both applied to the same firm. My friend's partner, she's actually from the Philippines. She's an ethnic minority. So she was the first person to apply to this firm. And she waited and waited and waited, and nothing came back to her. And a month after, my friend, he's British, he applied, and he instantly, within, let's say 3 days, he got an email back calling him in for an interview. And people say, oh, maybe it just came at the right time, or I don't think that's the case. I think certain companies hire based on whether they can easily pronounce your name, whether your name looks ethnic or not. And that is actually, it's a massive barrier for people of color or just ethnic minorities in general, because you aren't given a fighting chance. Like if your name is going to blacklist you, it sort of discourages you down the line when you're applying. And I feel like that is what needs to change through like the application process, but it's not something that can be changed immediately. It's something that needs to start within the actual company and need to go to the higher ups. But I don't know, it's just within the system, and it's something that it just needs to change. It needs to change, and the only way it's going to change is if we.
Victoria, before you had to go to Ghana during your time, I mean, schooling around Europe, did you have to face this personally, or did you know someone had that?
Yeah, so I know people who did experience it, and for me, so there were a couple of instances where, so I worked with a Ghanaian in Germany, and we were selling cosmetics all across Europe, natural skincare like shea butter and stuff like that. And there was one instance where we wanted to rent a space in a mall in Vienna, and she had white employees. So they initiated a conversation with the shopping mall. And then at some point she had to come in, and immediately everything went downhill from there, because the person wrote an email, Mr. So-and-so we know, the German name, Mr. So-and-so we know, and you, who are you? And she's like, I'm the boss, and they started throwing barriers in her way. And eventually her husband wrote them an email, I think you're being racist towards my wife. So eventually she didn't take the space anymore. And she gave examples of times where in her class, so she studied cosmetology, and they would show videos of skin problems, and many of the case studies that they used were from Black people. So it got to a point where whenever they were supposed to have a group discussion, nobody wanted to work with her. Because, so I personally didn't face any of that. I think I had to come to terms with the fact that a lot of roles that end up being taken by ethnic minorities are, it's like a straitjacket. So either you work in the shop as a shop assistant, or you are in cleaning, or you're working in a restaurant. And it's kind of like a bottomless hole, because once you get into that system, you're never coming out. So when I came out of school, I think my scholarship had ended. I was running out of savings. So I had a friend who was from Vietnam, and he brought his wife, and she didn't speak German. And I was like, look, if you ever make your wife do this job, I will not talk to you again. Because I knew that once she gets in that system, so there are employment agencies that look for people to fill these roles. So usually they put people from Southeast Asia to work in the old people's homes, cleaning, washing people and all that. And it's very exhausting, you know. And so I had a choice. You can get a short-term job working at Primark or whatever. But I was like, if I go down this road, I'm never coming out. So I stuck to my guns. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do this. So it was one of the reasons why eventually I came home. Because as a very qualified person in Germany, there's a certain amount of money you're supposed to earn as a graduate. And it takes a long time to find a job like that. So it was either wait, you know, till you find that job or go home. So I made the choice to go home, and I haven't regretted.
Wow. Very interesting. Micah, we're just about wrapping up, but I mean, let's stay on this issue of employment.
I think I'll just pick it up from where she left off. And I think I agree with you that that you made a very good decision to go back, because with your qualification and all, there was no point in settling for anything less based on the depth of the knowledge and all. In my case, as you rightly said, in Germany, you obviously have to have a certain amount of money being earned and all to qualify to stay a bit longer, to even have the chance to look for work and all of that. Say in my case, I was lucky. After my internship with Deutsche Welle, then, you know, sort of it went well, so I had a chance to work with them. So in that case, this is my story now, right? But I mean, to the point of being racially abused at work or to even prevent you from getting a job, I guess that's always a tricky part, right? Because you can only assume to a large extent. If your picture is on your CV, it could be the reason they said no, or maybe for whatever other reason. So those are a bit difficult to say that, hey, I wasn't picked up just because I'm Black. It's challenging to be 100% about it. But for sure, it is a challenge that all around, there are people that are being skeptical of hiring some sort of people based on where they're from, their skin color and all. This is what we're talking about, systematic racism, and it exists. No one denies this fact. That's for sure. We just have to really find a way of dealing with this and rising beyond that. And then just treating everyone as a human being. How difficult can that be? Really?
Exactly. But Micah, just like you said, these things are difficult to prove. And I think that is the reason why Joy Floyd's example has become very profound, because it was on camera and there's no denial that this happened, because all these that we are talking about are difficult to. How would you prove that you didn't get a job because of your name or your picture or anything? It's really difficult to prove, and that's why people, the minority, feel like this is a very clear chance of opportunity to hit this nail right on the head. So, Solace, just before we go, tell us what you think about this whole thing going forward. I think we've now established that there is a very great future for this protest, and we all hope that it yields some result. But what more do you think we can do to make this happen?
Well, I would say consistency. I'd say that it is very easy for someone to get tired especially when they keep saying the same thing over and over again, especially when you're supposed to know. I mean, I shouldn't tell you that my life matters. It should go without saying. Unfortunately, it doesn't go without saying. So we need to keep saying it. We need to keep teaching it. And the issue with racism, and obviously we have the institutionalized ones, the systemic ones, where policies need to change from the top to the bottom. Things need to change in that sense. But if you're also talking about the daily interaction with people, there's a lot of education that needs to go into it. A lot of education, because people are not born racist. They are socialized to become racist. So if we are able to make sure, and especially as media persons, if we're able to make sure that the content that is out there is something that goes in line with teaching people, educating people from scratch, from the cartoons to the anime to the movies, to the music and everything. It goes in line with preaching the gospel of treating everyone as equal, to preaching the gospel of not discriminating against someone based solely on the amount of melanin they have in their skin. That would go a long way, because we are looking at long term. Policies and things are great, but at the end of the day, the people that are going to grow to be 20, 30 in the next 30 years, to ensure that this doesn't continue at that time, they need to be taught now. It needs to be started now. And that is what we need to focus on as well. Whilst we're changing the institutions, let's change the way children are raised. That is extremely important.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been great talking to you, and it's been a very productive discussion. We all hope that we've all put our hands on deck, show the world what we have as people in the Black minority, and to also prove that indeed Black lives do matter. Thank you very much. And I've been talking to people of great minds, great personalities, people who are doing so well regardless of their background or where they are coming from, also striving to make a change in the world, to also prove to the entire world that Black lives, as well as every life, do matter. Thank you very much for watching this episode. See you same time next week. Stay safe.